We are not planning to take over Fremo N. We don't own it. We don't own the standards, but they're a N-scale modular railroading, and we're going to help and support them. But on the whole, the responses have been positive. So the announcement, aside from publications, went out to about 2,600 people on our mail list that are not members of NTRAK or NRail. And it also went out on the N-scale at Groups.io list, which NRail owns. So probably somewhere in the vicinity of 5,000 or more people have received an email with the announcement. So does anybody here have a comment that they want to make at this point before we go on to the next topic?
I just bought vanity license plates that said NTRAK.
NTRAK and T-TRAK don't go away. And thank you for buying the license plate. No, NTRAK and T-TRAK, there is no requirement, by the way, for any club to change their name or adopt the term NRail. NTRAK is still part of NRail. T-TRAK is still part of NRail. So an NTRAK or T-TRAK license plate, decals, whatever, any of the merchandise, the hats and that are still good.
I would hope that in your social media listings that you're planning, you're also planning on media that would address younger kids, anywhere from 5 on up. You know, taking a look at what Atlas and others may be doing on trains for kids.
That's in our objectives. Yeah. Recruiting at different age groups, and that is all in our objectives. Yeah. Now, social media, so far we're on Facebook and we have a YouTube channel. We're looking at other types of social media.
Yeah, I would look specifically at the kind of things that kids, and I'm, you know, all of us, we're all old farts. So we may you may want to ask your children, where do your grandchildren watch? Where do they go?
Mm-hmm.
So Facebook isn't something for, you know, the younger adolescents, the preteens.
What he's trying to say is maybe TikTok.
I don't know. I'm not familiar with it, but maybe, you know, wherever kids are, that's where we ought to be.
We have one of our board members who is designated as our guy that takes care of the social media, and he is advising us all, because guys like me need it. Because when you get away, when you say Facebook, that's confusing enough for me. When you go to these other stuff, I'm lost. So we got a guy who knows, and he is working on it, and that's his primary purpose on the advisory board for NRail.
Yeah, John Mark, are you on board?
Yep, he's on.
I am here, and I'm loving hearing the comments because obviously
turn your volume down a bit.
Turn it down.
Yeah, you're kind of
Too loud.
over modulating.
Sorry, how's that? Better?
No.
I've got a hands-free on. This might not work. I'm listening hands-free. I'll just respond in comments. How's that?
Okay. Anyways, he's the guy, and our meeting on February 1st is all about social media.
Just 2 other comments. Number 1, there is an article about it in the newsletter, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right.
And also, we will be, you'll be hearing more from John Mark, I'm sure. He'll be sharing his plan as he starts to roll it out. So stay tuned.
Okay.
All right, thank you, John. And a reminder that after all the presentations are over this afternoon, we will open up for comments and questions about all the topics. And we'll get to that at the end. And you can still, as Bruce mentioned earlier, you can still chat if you so desire. The chat little button is at the bottom and it'll bring up a screen just to the right of everybody's face. Our second presentation today is our monthly vendor presentation. And Stan Brooks with Jackson Terminal Company is with us, and he's going to tell us what's going on in his company.
Can you guys all hear me all right?
Yep.
Yep.
Thumbs ups are always good, especially on Zoom because everybody else is muted. All right. So I just want to let you guys all know that we are an N-scale manufacturer who produces highly detailed intermodal containers. We have 20 footers, 40 footers, 45, or we're going to get to 45s. We have 48s and 53s. Some of you might have heard from some of your HO colleagues that we're going to be getting into the HO market, and that is correct. But I want to reassure everyone here that we are dedicated to the N-scale market, and just like all the other manufacturers that produce everything in HO, they're going to produce it in N-scale. We're going to do exactly the opposite, where our focus is to continue to deliver the market of N-scale where it's lacking, and then produce HO afterwards. Hopefully you guys have all heard of us. If you haven't, please check us out at jtcmodeltrains.com. We have a new new line that we call our Visionary series, and it incorporates the research and prototype models into models that could be a possibility. So mergers and acquisitions. One would be something like how one came about back in 2019, where they're operating on 40-foot standards, high cubes. They've got reefers. Something that we would probably produce that would use the prototypical one colors would be maybe on a 20-foot bulk container. It's something that one's probably not going to do, but it's something that many people would like to see in our Visionary series. We also have some very popular HO lines that we are going to produce in. I've got a lot of samples here to try to show you guys, and hopefully you guys can see them. But these are large logo samples of some very popular HO model railroads. And we want to bring that to the N-scale market, even though they're HO railroads. Some of you guys might collect them. HO market, they're going to be dying for them. But that's something that we're bringing to the market in our Visionary series. We also have some other freelance. Here's it's hard to see. This is Brooks Transportation. It was a trucking company. They don't actually have containers, but this is something where we took the logo and we were able to put it on a 53-foot container. Wow. So you'll see a lot of, I guess it might be considered proto freelance, coming with some different schemes. Our holiday container that we have is a 53-foot 642-6 container. There's no prototype for it, but it's something that some modelers like every year to have a holiday container or a holiday car each year. So that's our Visionary series. We have begun our 855-8 53-foot domestic containers, which is tooling that is specific to each scheme. I'm going to hold up a set of containers here and give you guys a look, it's hard to see, but the XPOs, they have the placard cards tooled into the molding exactly where they need to be. The SDs is actually just a sticker because that's what they use. And the other ones, the Matte Sun, and that's actually an X FEC with a EMP patch over. And on some of that stuff, you can see on the back of the FEC, you can still see a little bit of the top of the FEC logo on that EMP patch. So there's a lot of unique individual toolings for the 855-8 series, including GPS trackers. So I'll show you. Can you guys see these models pretty clear?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Dan, you're doing a great job.
All right. So this is the difference between a JB Hunt and an XPO. And you can see the JB Hunt, that's a GPS tracker below the JB Hunt sticker. And if you look at the XPO, the GPS tracker is actually above the XPO logo.
Just
And
draw back a little bit.
And the placards are also different. And so is that the top spacing on that front end is also wider. So just for you guys' information is we try to tool as much as we can so that we're just not putting stickers on a container. A container to us is just not a box. There's more to it than a box. There's specific tooling that needs to be properly represented, and that's what we want to do. So that these containers, the Matte Sun, the SDs, the X FEC EMP, the XPO, those are going to be released in February. We have Universal and Twin Logistics that will be out in March, and that Universal actually has a explosive painting inside that placard. We have just released.
Am I?
Go ahead. Somebody have a question?
Go ahead, Stan. No, they're talking with their mic open and they shouldn't be.
Okay. And we just released several bulk containers in January, as well as some 20-footers that are our new military series that we'd like to show here, as well as a 20-foot bulk container that we have here. So the military, we know that there are some manufacturers.
Stan, you just muted yourself.
We know that there's some manufacturers out there that produce military items, and you have to assemble them. Our goal is to get you a ready to roll item that people want, as opposed to having to do a lot of work to them and also paint them. So those military containers, if you're interested in them, is they're actually flying off the shelf right now. We've already had several reorders from distributors and direct retailers, and they were just released 7 days ago, and they've already reordered. So if that's something you're interested in, definitely either order through us or go find your favorite retailer and get it from them. I gotta look at my phone for all my notes, so just bear with me. We still have, I don't know if you guys can see the Gateway 2020 commemorative 3 container set. But we have probably about maybe 30 or 40 still on hand. If you do want to purchase them, obviously I suggest you guys buy them through the NTRAK store and let NTRAK reorder from us. That's probably the best way. And that also helps out NTRAK as well through generating some funds for the organization. We have a new 60-foot COFC flat car that we've got in design, and we are looking for, we're getting ready to start the tooling on this, and that's going to have 4 different decks on it. We're going to start with the container deck and then produce the other cars to go along with it to hold large loads. So that's something that will be coming out in 2021. We have also got our new 40-foot reefer series, which has 5 different tooled front ends for different carriers, whether it's Thermo King, Carrier, can't think of the other ones right now, but we're also adding a gen set that will go on the front of that modelers will be able to move between containers to allow you guys to model and not just have a single fixed unit where you can't move it around. We want to be able to model. I mean, modeling is like playing. So that's what our goal is. And those will all be compatible with all of our containers. The in February release, we have 2 more military containers that will be entering the market as well. This is a patch, I think, on an Army unit and potentially a Marines unit. And then in March, we've got a United States Air Force on the bottom, and you can't see it because of the way that it's not very conspicuous, or it's not very visible. It's conspicuous lettering, but it says on there in white, property of United States Air Force on the bottom container. So those are coming out in March. Let's see. Our Norfolk Southern safety train, which is a 20-foot bulk container and a 20-foot container. Those have been specially tooled for this safety train, and they're actually supposed to arrive this week. So if any of you guys have pre-ordered them, expect them very soon. If you haven't and you're interested, you need to contact your preferred retailer and try to see if they can get them. We will have, if you are signed up for our newsletter, we've already told the distributors we will hold a few of them back for direct orders for those people who didn't pre-order. But after about a day or 2, our quantities are going to be gone because they've already ordered more than what we even have. So they're all going to get, whoever's ordered them from a distributor standpoint, they're going to get those. Our 17-post well car, it should be shipped here probably about mid-February. So if you have those ordered, those are going to be hitting the market as soon as we get those. And so contact your dealer as well for those. Anybody who wants a 9-post, our first freight car was a 9-post TTX car. We have a few as you can see, this is completely unassembled. And so if you are interested in a kit of a 9-post well car, 53 foot, we are in the works of getting a complete kit together so that modelers will have the opportunity to have our 9-post well car. Other than that, it's probably going to be a couple of years before we do another 9-post well car. But it's going to come with the frame of the car in the new blister pack. If anybody has any old ones, you'll know that we had some issues with busted couplers, hand rails, grab bars, and that was all due to a blister pack issue, which has been completely redefined so that the car is completely supported freely by the plastic and not able to move. And in this package, you will get another actual little box that will have the wheels, the couplers, everything to put together a 9-post well car. So if you're interested in these, please reach out to service, that is service@jtcmodeltrains.com, or you can reach me directly at stan@jtcmodeltrains.com. And we're starting a new program. Our new program is something that we figured it costs us time and money to always hold on to, you know, that last little bit of inventory, whether it's us looking for something, our inventory is not correct. And it's just something that we want to be able to help offer to get rid of the stock that we have. And it's going to be our 10 less than 10 program, and it'll be released every month on our monthly email. And what it is when we have an item that's got 10 items or less in stock, we're going to offer a 10% discount, plus you'll get the free shipping and get that product to get moving so that we know we're sold out, and that's a potential for us to start remaking those for maybe a second batch, a third batch, or a fourth batch. Something that we haven't had a problem with are the 1 containers, which are flying off the shelf pretty regularly. So those are not ones that we will find in that 10 less than 10 program very often.
Stan, I'm going to have to ask you to wrap up if you can. You're running about 10 minutes long.
All right. Well, I'm all done. That was it. I was going to see, do I need does anybody have any questions? You want questions now, or?
We'll do questions at the end of the program. Okay,
sound good.
Thank you very much, Stan. I appreciate it. Reason I'm in a hurry is because I'm next. You see, that's okay. Bruce, are you going to give me the share thing here, or is it ready to go? All right. As part of our expansion into layouts as well as modules, today we're going to talk about layout and module maintenance and housekeeping. I was very sadly surprised here about 2 years ago. I went on an operations weekend and went to a layout that was pretty well known and highly regarded. And I got there and I couldn't keep from sneezing. There was so much dust in that place. I don't think it'd been cleaned in a long time. And we find that at some shows, we'll find some modules that are a little bit the worse for wear. So I wanted to talk a little bit today about how to keep your layout or your module or group of modules in good shape so they look their best and operate their best. There's always the obvious things like fixing something that's broken or a wire that's come loose, but the routine housekeeping regimen is also a good idea. Let's first look. There's the opening curtain, and that's the last time you'll see that. Obviously, number one is track maintenance. And that's critical because you got to remember that the track is not just to keep the train going where it wants to go. It's what gets the juice from the power source to the locomotive's engines. So everybody's familiar with the Bright Boy, as you can see on the right, and those are fine. They've done well for years. The problem with them is that they're very abrasive and they actually scratch the surface of the rails. This Sandflex is a newer stuff. It's used to polish aircraft parts, and it is a lot softer. Unfortunately, you can't get it anymore, but I wanted to show it because we use it, and I'm looking for a replacement for that kind of deal. It's kind of a spongy thing, but it polishes rather than scratches. And if any of you know of one, when we get to the questions and answers at the end, we'll see if we can find out what that is and let people know about it as well. The other thing that looks really great and works fantastic is a thing called D-oxide. Now, a lot of people have used a lot of things on their track. I've heard transmission fluid, this, that, and the other. A lot of them have pluses, but a lot of them have minuses. D-oxide is a liquid that is very low viscosity that is used in the electronics industry. They spray it on switches and rub it on things to give good electrical contact. It stops oxidation. And what you do is you take a little toothpick, dip it into the top of that thing, and then you just wipe across about a little 1-inch section of each of the two rails. You run your train over it, and that train, the wheels of the train will carry that for 30 or 40 feet. And you can do that once every 3 months or so, and it takes care of it. You don't have to scrub your track. You don't have to do anything else to it, but put this on. It's a great product, and you'll find it at most electrical parts stores for electronics. If Radio Shack was around anymore, they'd have something like that. Another obvious thing are the track cleaning cars. And now that's back to the abrasion, but it's not a lot of weight. The old Roco cleaning car, as you can see on the red on the left, has been around for years, and those things work great. Carry them along in the train, just putting in the train just to kind of shine it up. On the right, you'll see the same thing, but instead of the abrasive pad, it has a piece of masonite on it, which is kind of just as a wiper pad to wipe things, keep it wiped off, and keep the track clean. The Atlas cleaning car is a great, great little thing. Unfortunately, you can't use it on DCC.
Yes, you can.
Well, mine you can't because I burned the damn thing up. I didn't. Is there something you have to modify? We'll talk about that later, John.
You can put a decoder in it.
Well, I didn't. But do it before you put it on because I sure burned mine up. But the nice thing about it is not only does it, it has a vacuum, it has a polishing cloth, it's got an abrasive brush, all of them on a little motor that will rotate. So it's a nice tool, but be careful with it. If you don't, like I said, if you don't do what John's saying, put a decoder or something in it, it doesn't like DCC. There are others that I didn't present here. There are a lot of different brands of track cleaning cars, and they're sure nice just to run in a train where the Atlas thing doesn't look too good if you're running a 1940s train, but you can put a Roco or something like that in your train, and it kind of keeps the track clean on a day-to-day basis as you're using it, and it doesn't really cause a lot of problems. Besides just oxidation, there's always debris that gets on your layout, particularly on the track. Sweeping and vacuuming the track is always a good thing. It gets rid of loose ballast, ground cover, tree leaves, parts like broken stirrups, bolster pins, ladders, grab irons, stuff that just fall off occasionally and need to be picked up, and you can't always see them. So vacuuming is a great thing, and I'll talk to that a little more about that in a minute. The other thing you have to think about particularly on a home layout, is expansion and contraction. Now, there are two things that cause expansion and contraction. One's temperature and one is humidity. Temperature affects the rails a lot. And as it gets hot, those rails will lengthen. As they get short, they'll shrink. But if they lengthen and you don't have enough room for them to lengthen, then you'll start seeing curved track and you'll see it pop out and you'll be out of gauge. The humidity affects the, if you have a wood frame, it'll affect that. And as humidity increases, the wood will absorb it and the wood will expand, and that causes problems too. So you have to kind of watch out for that. You should have an NMRA track gauge, which you should run through all your track periodically to make sure everything is there. And it's this bottom pair where it says track. You can see my arrow pointing to it. That's the one you need to slide across there to make sure you are engaged. The other thing you can do if you start seeing a problem is just take a Dremel tool. If your track is starting to get a little out of gauge, cut a gap about every 8 feet. You don't have to do that with modulars because you've got a gap at every module. So you don't have to worry about that. But on home layouts, you can't run a 20-foot run of track. It'll get you in trouble. Or if you don't, you've been very lucky. On turnouts, check the points for flush contact to the rail on a periodic basis. Don't wait for it to cause you a problem. Do it as a routine maintenance. Adjust the throw of the turnout machines if necessary. Clean between the rails and the guide rails. Stuff will get down in there that will cause derails. Rail joiners. Some people solder the rail joiners, some people don't, and have a feeder at every track, but check, even if you don't solder them, that they're tight to the rails. And check where you have block breaks that your insulators are still in place. The other thing that, like I was saying at the beginning, the big thing is dust and cobwebs. There's an easy way to get rid of that. Number one is vacuum. This is one my wife got for me, and it works out really nicely. You just put a piece of old pantyhose or something like that across the tip to catch anything, so you don't get it, you don't lose it. It'll pick up things that the vacuum will pick up, and you'll catch it in that hose, and you won't lose parts that you wanted to recover. Get a little spritz bottle and put no alcohol, just put water in it. And the water, if you'll spritz the trees and the ground cover, the water will dissolve that dust and it'll disappear. It'll make it look like new. Don't put the wet water on it, because if you do, if you haven't adequately protected your buildings and stuff like that, it can get on there and it can mess with your paint on your buildings and stuff. And of course, you don't want it near any rolling stock either. But spritzing will work. This little brush, I think those of you that are married, your wife will probably have a few of those. They're fantastic for N scale. That brush is just a little wider than the top of an N scale car. It's great for brushing off the roofs of buildings, brushing the sides, putting it, just carrying it over on top of a train as it runs past with that brush down there, and it'll clean off the top of your cars. Rolling stocks need to be cleaned as well. Minitrix has made these for decades, and they're fantastic for cleaning the rails of your engines. And there's nothing better that I know of. The other, a lot of people will put a damp cloth over the track and then put their engines on it and let it run through that, and that works. But this gives it the abrasiveness that doesn't do any damage to the metal wheels, and it really gets the gunk off of there. And if you don't have one of those, the brush on a Dremel tool will do the very same thing. Very easy to do and very effective. Now on other rolling stock where you've got metal wheels, you can't use the mini tricks thing because the wheels aren't turning on their own. So you can use the Dremel tool, and you'll have to hold your hand to keep that wheel from just spinning with the Dremel tool, but that is a basic way to get it. Plastic wheels, there's no easy way to do that. What I do is that I bought a box full of extra plastic wheels, and I'll change a few of them out periodically. And the ones I've changed out, then I can sit there with a little pocket knife and scrape them clean on my own over the next week or so. And then I've got a new set to put in the next time or the next group that I want to clean up. But if you don't clean the gunk that builds up on the plastic wheels of your rolling stock, that gunk will come back onto your track and mess it up. Broken or missing parts, pick them up. That's part of your maintenance program, is to keep your rolling stock up to speed, get all the parts put back on. Particularly if you're running these cars that have all these beautiful fine detail parts that occasionally do fall off. The brush that I was showing you earlier, it's if that doesn't get it, a damp cloth without any alcohol or anything else, just damp cloth will dissolve the dust without damaging anything. People forget that in a home layout, light fixtures, valances, they build up dust and debris and cobwebs too, and they need to be cleaned, vacuum, handy wipe, broom, they need to be cleaned periodically. The other part of railroad maintenance is your power system and wiring. Don't forget that every so often, particularly if it's ZoomTRAKs, you got to check that battery backup and replace it once in a while. Check it, see if it's good, because if you don't and it goes down, then you can be in trouble. Do your quarter short test on your track on a periodic basis to make sure everything is working. Every year, at least, or 6 months, you should reprogram all your programmable power systems. Over time, things can happen, and it's just a good safety check, and it also keeps you on your toes to remember how to do it, so you don't get caught having forgot how to do that, which becomes more and more a problem as you get to my age. Test your local nut cables periodically to make sure that they haven't worn or gotten bent or pulled or damaged. You know, the LT1 local net tester is a standard tool. It's got the 4 little lights on it. All 4 lights should be lit on ZoomTRAKs. Now, I can't speak to NCE or any other power systems because I'm not familiar with them, but they all do have a similar type system for getting power from one place to the other. And whatever that is, you need to check it on a regular basis. Wiring. Periodically go up underneath and tighten all the screws on your terminal blocks to make sure they haven't worked loose over time. Again, that can happen. Just heat can cause that over time, and vibration. Tighten them up. Wiggle the wires while track power is on to see if there are any shorts that you don't see. They might, if you just reach up underneath there and wiggle the wires periodically, and everything's working, then it's passed the wiggle test. It's just something that doesn't hurt. If you have a layout or a club layout that's in a separate building, you're more than likely going to have to address the issue of insects and rodents. And sometimes even your house, there's the little pesky mice will get in. You got to watch for that kind of stuff. Insect spray, great stuff, but be careful where you use it, because you don't want to damage anything on your layout. Bait and traps for varmints and rodents. Under layout storage, periodically pull everything out of there and clean underneath there. Wipe it down, and you also may find stuff you didn't know where the hell it was, and now you do, and you can maybe reorganize it and do a better job where you can find it better the next time. Look up underneath your layout for wire insulation damage. That can occur if you have something that likes to chew on the insulation.
Having an air freshener in the train room is also a great idea. You can hide those so they're not seen. You can close them up. And when the day before you're going to have people over to operate, open a little bit, get some fresh air. Close them before everybody gets there, because sometimes those can be overpowering too. You don't want to overpower them with scent, but you don't want to have odors that you don't like in there either. Occasionally, you'd be surprised how many people don't do this, but sweep, vacuum, and mop the floor of your layout room. And then obviously the last thing is general appearance. Check when your ballast is worn, fix it where it's chipped, fill it in, get it back into shape. Add ground cover where it's worn. Consider LED bulbs for lighting your layout. It's amazing, the price has gone down where they're very reasonable now. If you have fluorescents, there are LED bulbs that are just complete replacement. You don't have to worry about the ballast. It can be done. If it's light bulbs, you just replace them with the light bulbs. And the other thing that's surprising is when you switch to LED bulbs, your layout room becomes a lot cooler. Those things, the LEDs don't put out the heat that the other bulbs do, and they're really great. And if you get them in there right, it does a lot to eliminate shadows. Touch up your fascia boards and skyboards periodically. And if you have skirting, wash and iron it every so often. If it's threadbare, raveled, torn, or has holes, it's time to replace it. Now, all these things, a lot of these things are obvious, but as I said before, people forget to do that, and it reflects on you and your layout or your modules. So doing that, it'll make you a prouder individual of what you've got to show, and people will really appreciate it and enjoy it a lot more. And that's it. So I'm gonna, Bruce, let's see, let me release this thing, and we'll go back, and we should be ready to, how do I get out of this thing?
You're fine. It's now Terry's turn, I guess.
Okay.
Before Terry starts, I just noticed that we reached 100 participants, which is about 20 more than we've ever had before. Congratulations and thank you.
All right. So now we're ready for our final presentation. And we're running a little long, but don't let that worry you, Terry. You've got your 30 minutes. And if you're ready to go, we'll talk about beyond the rectangle.
Good afternoon, everyone. And we'll just fire this thing up and see where we go.
Okay.
Thinking outside the rectangle. Well, this was a topic that was suggested to me by Bruce. I know about thinking outside the box, but the rectangle kind of confused me a little bit. I didn't really know what he was thinking about regarding that. Because like many of you, I suffer from train brain or train on the brain. Fortunately, a vaccine is not being developed for that. We won't die from it, but we may die with it. So the script, I have to turn pages and they won't turn pages. So the closest I could get to a rectangle is our modules. Most of them are rectangular, except for our corners. Since NRail is embracing all N-scale model railroading formats, I'm only reasonably familiar with NTRAK and T-TRAK. I'm currently studying up on the others. Thinking inside the rectangle is already covered by the various standards documented for those formats. And now that NRail also embraces home layouts, ideas that are no longer constrained by modular limits. That allows even more creativity, some of which may be adapted to the modular environment. One of those formats is ZoomTRAK. NTRAK and its standards have been around for almost 50 years, and nothing much new has been developed recently in the way of layout designs and new ideas. The most out of the rectangle item for NTRAK is the unTRAK interface and the junction module. As I said, I'm not ready to approach unTRAK, but they have been coexisting with NTRAK layouts for years. Unfortunately, my circle of friends do have unTRAK modules, but I've never seen them added to an NTRAK layout. With the reduced number of NTRAK modules being presented now, perhaps it's time to renew interest in unTRAK. This slide shows that the unTRAK NTRAK interface uses an NTRAK junction module.
Terry, Terry, excuse me, we're not seeing your slides.
You're not seeing the slides?
Nope.
Then I go into that. My apologies to NRail for plagiarizing their logos.
You're entitled to it.
That's what they're for.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's the train brain thing I was talking about. Okay, so now this takes me to unTRAK, and that's where I will continue from. So again, NTRAK and its standards have been around for almost 50 years, and nothing much new has been developed recently in the way of designs. The most out of the rectangle item for NTRAK is the unTRAK interface and the junction module. And as I said, I'm not ready to approach unTRAK, but they've been coexisting with NTRAK layouts for years. And again, unfortunately, my circle of friends do have unTRAK modules, but I have never seen them added to an NTRAK layout. With the reduced number of NTRAK modules, again, being presented now, perhaps it's time to renew interest in unTRAK. This slide shows that the unTRAK NTRAK interface uses an NTRAK junction module. NTRAK modules can be inserted between the NTRAK junction and the straight adapter module to increase spacing between the two layouts. The two formats are physically compatible since the modules operate at the same module height. Unfortunately, unTRAK requires left and right junctions for true flexibility. NTRAK. This is one of the layouts from TrainFest, probably somewhere around a decade ago. To me, the NTRAK junction is a wonderful module, but unfortunately is seldom seen. You can see that in this diagram at the top right-hand corner, there's a junction module there that leads off to a little tail. I'm not sure. That may have been, maybe it wasn't unTRAK. Maybe that was just NTRAK with an end loop. Anyway, I've seen many large NTRAK layouts such as this that have been nothing more than large loops. These loops, in keeping with the idea of modules built to a common standard, allow clubs and individuals, my NTRAK mentor and I are individuals, no clubs within a day's drive to me, from all over, so clubs and individuals from all over can congregate on a single layout and run trains on a layout far larger than we could create on our own. Yeah, okay, I'm preaching to the choir. Been here, done that. You all know that. These large loop layouts can operate several trains at one time on each of their three main lines. But should a train derail or separate, a whole line is stopped until the unfortunate train is back underway. Okay, so what's so great about the NTRAK junctions? They also require a left and right set and are quite large to transport. This is an indication here of what a pair of NTRAK junctions look like. In the case of the junction module on the left, you can see that there are the three main lines that we're all used to. And it shows you that there's a little bit of creativity as you go off the layout to the right. And that requires a junction module, which basically mirrors the one on the left, so that you can get into the adjacent NTRAK layout with its 3 main lines. So here we have what I am kind of proposing. By utilizing the NTRAK junctions, many individual loops controlled by separate clubs or groups under their own banner, they can maintain their own identity in their own loop, can be interconnected on the red line for a total layout mainline route. You get to take the full length of the possible layout running length. The yellow and blue lines would only operate within their own loop section of the overall layout for those who do not wish to explore the world beyond. Also, great many layouts, the red line only is DCC, while the yellow and blue lines remain DC for those that prefer a DC operation. Many NTRAK modules include crossovers between the main lines, so those on all 3 main lines could pick and choose the route they wish to take, again, depending on DC or DCC wiring limitations. The red line also now offers alternate routes to trains. Should the red line be fouled on one loop, the loop could be avoided. This type of layout also uses a smaller display footprint for the number of modules used, which may be a benefit for smaller venues or shows that require a higher density display, and otherwise less operator pit. Lately, in the NRail newsletter, I've presented articles about T-TRAK junctions and their compatible corners. Steve Jackson's original junction design, based on the standard corner, started it all. His junction was a perfect companion for the standard corner. It still allowed single table wide layouts and provided more interesting layouts with more loops for more trains, although some folks find them somewhat unprototypical. This little animation here shows the absolute never-ending compatibility of corners and junctions in any configuration. And obviously, you just simply add modules in between these 4 elements to create your layouts and continue off the end of the junctions. A perfect junction should have a perfectly compatible corner, as in this little animation, that allows for any number of combinations when creating a layout with any corrective action, such as special pieces of track or fudge factor issues. The corner and junction should be perfectly interchangeable. Non-standard junctions and corners should also be easily adaptable into a T-TRAK layout with corners and junctions of other sizes. Unfortunately, any junctions and corners larger than the standard items require a double wide row of tables. The high cost of table rental or the unfortunate necessity to bring our own tables can be a limiting factor. People may want to try to do their best to maintain a single row of tables for their layouts. But with large locomotives and longer rolling stock comes the desire for corners of a larger radius. This is another TrainFest layout, this being the T-TRAK layout we had one year. In my article, I mentioned the Des Moines Club and their 17-inch junctions and corners. Their junctions and corners are just such a perfectly matching set. In this layout, the 17-inch junctions were used to prevent the red line from having any corners less than the 348 millimeter radius, as opposed to the standard 282 millimeter radius. And they were compatible with the standard corners and junctions by adding a 64 millimeter track piece as required. Anybody that's read my articles realizes we now have 33 millimeter track sections available from Kato, and a pair of them would have been absolutely perfect and would have done away with the 2 millimeter fudge factor that the 64s created. Kato's catalog provides several sizes of curved track, so several corner and junction combinations are possible. They may not be suitable for modules, but for home layouts, there may be such a combination that would be just right. In this little diagram, the yellow junction modules are indeed the 17-inch junctions. The little red pieces are the 64 millimeter adapter sections required by the inclusion into a layout that also has Steve Jackson junctions and standard corners. Oop. Enter the branch line junction. The new interest in branch line junctions and large radius 19-inch corners created a problem. Up until now, they weren't totally compatible in the perfect form that I tried to show with the previous junctions. The branch line junctions were based on a triple straight module, which is actually just about what they are, which works out actually quite nicely. I love these junctions, but they are not directly compatible with 19-inch corners. But they do work to provide a branch line loop off of a main line and allow the main line trains to bypass the branch. Until now. Why do I care? Well, this is my little toy. I started with a 12-foot 8-track yard made up of 2 3-foot yard ladders and 3 2-foot yard 8-track doubles. The 8 tracks are individually powered and single rail blocked with control switches to allow part DC trains or DCC loading, reduce DCC loading, or to allow trains to be moved. Now, true, we could simply go by power routing turnouts, but that left a problem where if somebody threw the wrong turnout, the train took off. So this is why I individually switched single rail only. A single rail only was suitable because in this case, we were not doing any interchange between main lines or possible main line wiring issues. So there. Now, I built my first yard as it says, 12-foot yard. A friend of mine wanted an 18-foot yard. So I built him an 18-foot yard, just meant 3 more double yard modules. Then I found out from Joshua Mura, Joshua came up with a 7-track idea and a 7-track corner. Well, I already had the 8-track idea, so I adapted his 7-track corner into an 8-track corner. That goes back to those 33 millimeter track pieces and how they work with corners. But again, I'll bring that up in a future thinking outside the rectangle. So, fine. Because I have an outside the rectangle 8-track yard, I learned I could make an 8-track 19-inch corner, and the branch line junctions would be just perfect to feed the yard. but that would be all that I could do with them. Again, because they were not what I consider to be a perfect junction corner matchup. Due to their imperfect shape, they could not be used in the same way as a standard corner junction set. That was not acceptable since I wanted to use my branch line junctions the same way as other junctions, only with my 2-track 19-inch corners. They would be like larger versions of the standard junction sets. But now a commercially available, almost perfect branch line module design is out there. A little story. CMR has created this almost perfect branch line junction. When I was researching my article about junctions and their corners, I knew of friends that had CMR's branch line junctions. So I went to the CMR website for information. Their branch line junction was not listed. So I went to my friends for the information I needed to create my article. That junction was not compatible with the 19-inch corners the way I wanted, so I designed my own. That was what I included in the article. After publishing, I went back to the CMR website and found a new branch line junction shown that was a perfect match for the large corners. And that's what that little animation is depicting. So, this is what I'm attempting to accomplish with my own modules. Future plans just require one more 8-track yard double, 2 more standard junctions, and of course those branch line junctions. You see those purple modules? This is something I've mentioned in the past. Those are 597 millimeter long junction straights, as I call them. That makes them the same length as the Steve Jackson junctions and allows for this design, that being those corner situations. Because of the junction length straight, you can have another loop up in there. Otherwise, it would be simply a single row of modules. They're the same length as Steve Jackson junctions and allow for this design. A standard double module is 620 millimeters long. 23 millimeters is too long to be a fudge factor. In this case, the junction length 597 millimeter straight module is the only way to go to create create this layout, or you'd have to create a 23 millimeter fill-in track piece. I'm partial to the 597 millimeter straights because they can also be used as non-standard modules, fully allowable under T-TRAK standards. But wait, as Lieutenant Colombo would say, there's just one more thing. Okay, now, again, back to CMR. Again, while browsing the CMR website, I found out they also have kits for 45.5, 62, 64, and 124 millimeter track spacer modules. I always wondered what the Cato 28, 38, and 45.5 millimeter track pieces were for. I've already found out what the 33 pieces are for, and I'll revisit that again in a future Thinking Outside the Rectangle. Then it dawned on me. 2 Steve Jackson standard junctions side by side leave a 46 millimeter shortfall when compared to 2 double modules. Enter the 45.5 millimeter track piece. 2 junctions at 597 millimeters plus a 45.5 track piece is a 0.5 millimeter short of the 1240 millimeter long pair of doubles. That is not a fudge factor. It isn't even a hiccup. So now we have a choice. 2 597 millimeter straights or a 45.5 millimeter spacer module in that arrangement shown, tapped off one side of a loop. Okay. That's it for now, but there'll be more thinking outside the rectangle to come. We may even be thinking inside the rectangle in the future.
All right, thank you, Terry. Let's see if you will, there you go. Couple of things. Next ZoomTRAK meeting is on February the 13th. We will have 4 speakers. The first will be a virtual rail fanning and modeling presentation by Bruce Alcock. The second will be a vendor presentation by T-TRAK. The third will be a presentation on wiring a home layout with DCC by John Wallis. And the fourth will be an introduction to operations with N-scale emphasis by yours truly. Again, we are looking for slots to fill in future monthly ZoomTRAK meetings. So if you have one, please let us know. You'll see on your screen now that Bruce has put up the poll for the January feedback poll, and it's very short. If you please just answer those questions and send it, we would appreciate your feedback. Now, we will open this up to questions. We'll kind of moderate this a little bit. I'm going to open up this chat deal and see if we have some questions. I'm going to take them from the bottom to the top. Let's see.
Steve?
Yes.
Jim Pye was saying that I guess the FlexTrack is not on the website yet, but will be shortly.
Next week, yeah, we can update the website.
Okay.
Yeah, we just only announced this week, so.
Okay.
Yep.
How long is the FlexTrack?
It's in millimeter, I think 803 or 4 millimeters, I think. I don't have any information now, but I think 803 or 4 millimeters.
31 and a bit inches.
Oh, yeah, right. That's exactly, yeah.
You wanted a bit.
I remember the 31, but I don't remember the exact bit.
Great. Yeah.
I'll let you fill that in, Jim Pye.
yeah, I need a calculator, yeah.
0.61.
Okay.
All right, I'm looking through here for questions. I've got a lot of comments. Let's see, one comment, let's see. Can you use a sonic cleaner to clean plastic wheels? The answer is, I don't know why not.
Yes, you can.
That's the answer to that one.
You just got to make the solvent make sure the solvent won't dissolve the plastic.
I would suggest that all of you look through these chat. It has a lot of nice comments about some of these questions, and rather than going through all of them, I just ask you to look at them. Does anyone have a question that I haven't found yet? If you have, just shout it out.
Steve.
Yes.
Can you hear me? Your 2 cleaners that you referenced on your maintenance, what do you use to clean those with? Both the Bright Boy type material and the Mini-Trix brush.
The Mini-Trix brush, I haven't really had to clean it, but I can imagine it would get dirty, and what I would do is, if I were doing it, I'd use an alcohol and a toothbrush and just try to get it soaked down in there. Just make sure it's disconnected from your power and that you can get it dried off completely.
Okay.
But I don't know. I've never done it, so can't guarantee that that'll work.
Well, I'll give it a try and let you know. How about the Bright Boys?
The Bright Boys, you throw them away and get a new
Okay. Thank you.
one.
For the Bright Boy?
Questions on any of the, for any of the presenters?
For the Bright Boy?
Yeah, for any Bright Boys out there, yeah.
No, for the Bright Boy, you go outside and rub it on your sidewalk or your driveway, and it'll clean it right up.
Okay.
My old Bright Boy has gotten hard as a brick. It's not so much that it's dirty, it's just that it is hard as a rock. It's hardened over years. It becomes brittle. And those are the ones I throw away.
I'd like to add to Terry's presentation about thinking outside the box.
Okay, someone was asking about the outside the box questionnaire. Go ahead.
Yeah, my name is Chris Oliva. I'm part of Brooklyn NTRAK up in the Northeast. My club, in addition to other clubs that usually have done the Greenberg show in Edison, have done multiple layouts, like Terry presented with multiple junctions. That system does work to help get extra trains on the tracks for the public, and also helps when there is a derailment to keep the layout still moving. So we've had a lot of success over the years by using the multiple loop layout when we do do a presentation at a show. And it also helps us expand and use all the available space that we have when we do put a layout together.
That's kind of standard procedure for very large layouts. I mean, at Louisville in 2008, we had 8 loops around a spine with junction modules.
Chris is only adding that because he has enough modules to create his own entire layout.
Just because we have a layout that has multiple junctions on it and it's 22 feet by 6, I had to get my own big box fan to move it around. Doesn't mean I have my own layout.
Your modules are a layout, Chris.
Yeah, pretty much.
If any of you guys have ever had a chance to see his work, it really is amazing.
Turned off the video.
Steve?
Go ahead, Paul.
There are a number of companies that offer, well, they make, not call them Bright Boys, but abrasive pads in varying grits. Some of them down to the 600 grit or smaller. So they're approaching the polishing range, not just the sandpaper range.
Those are good. The polishing range is good. It's better on long life of your track.
Well, if you use sandpaper, what happens is you put grooves in the rail and it's a greater area to oxidize. So you should never use sandpaper or anything close to that. The polishing is probably the only thing that should be used.
Yeah, never use steel wool.
Also, the nickel plating is very thin.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I tried the Bright Boy on the sidewalk while we were talking there, and it does work.
Okay, great.
Great.
I just want to encourage everybody to fill in the poll because, and also if you have a topic, please do that you're willing to present. Just go ahead and send email to ZoomTRAK@nrail.org, and we'll work with you. And we've had a couple of other suggestions that we're going to see if we can't implement as well. Anyway. Go ahead. Sorry.
All right. If are there any other questions? Well, we thank you all for attending again this month, as it looks like we've had a great attendance of 100 people at the peak of this thing, which is fantastic. And again, we appreciate it. And we hope to bring you more topics with more and varied presenters in the future. So we will see you all next month on February the 13th for our next ZoomTRAK session. You all have a great day, and I hope you come in second to me tonight at the drawing for my $650 million.
I hit that. I'm going 1-to-1 scale. That's it. No more squinting eyes anymore. I'm just going to deal with real parts if I get that kind of money.
All right. I'm going to end here.